Uncertainty is not good. What we're talking about here is not a piece of the economy like the information technology revolution was, where a piece of software and a .com is your business model. We're talking about the basic infrastructure of the country when you're talking green jobs, clean tech, and renewables. It's energy. Hundreds of millions of dollars in capital plant and equipment. Billions of dollars in building the actual new generating facilities. You don't do that on a wink and a promise. You need mandates. You just do. And far from the notion that mandate and requirement is bad for business, if you're going to put billions of dollars on the table, you need things like a renewable portfolio standard so that you have the confidence if you build it, they will come.
And people resonate to that because it happens to be true. Gamesa is the third largest wind turbine manufacturer in the world. We have 7,000 people in 20 countries on 4 continents. We're traded over the Madrid Stock Exchange. We were the first original equipment manufacturer, wind turbine manufacturer, to come to the U.S. from overseas. The reason we did that was because Pennsylvania had an environmental secretary, who happens to be sitting next to me, who went over and grabbed Gamesa's leadership by the throat and said, "Come to Pennsylvania." Gamesa at that time had asked me to conduct a 27-state survey in the United States. We started in 2002. We hit 27 states. The governors trooped through our offices in D.C., everyone making a pitch. There's only one state that went over there to talk to the leadership. That was Pennsylvania, Katie. Governor Rendell was really the first governor to have an articulate renewable energy vision. Way ahead of his time, everyone's caught up, but he was the first. And the state passed a bipartisan renewable portfolio standard, bipartisan. Very important. And these were the things that put Pennsylvania on the map. And it came down to Texas and Pennsylvania, and Secretary McGinty organized a meeting in her office, very famous meeting, in April 6th of 2004. It'll never leave my mind, with all the CEOs of all the state utilities in that office. And she said, "This is a public office, so I'm not going to be here while you conduct business, but you know what the right answer is." And we brought in the Gamesa leadership, and all those utility CEOs said the right thing. And the CEO of Gamesa walked out and said, "You've just completely changed our game approach to the United States," because the company was about to go to Texas.
Axion Power International transitioned down from Canada in 2006. We moved into the greater Pittsburgh area, where we were able to purchase a closed and dormant lead-acid battery plant, which we've brought back to life. Well, I think they'll get a completely, I think the delegates that come in here will get a completely different view of Pittsburgh than what the outside world has seen in the past, and certainly what has been portrayed in the past, which is an old steel city with CO2 emissions and coke ovens and all the things that go with that steel industry. It's really quite different.
How so?
Well, it's the difference in the new Pittsburgh from the old Pittsburgh that I occasionally visited and did business in the downtown area is there is a complete resurgence here. There's a difference in the attitude of people. There's a difference in the cleanliness on the streets. There's a difference in the greenness of the new buildings as opposed to some of the old downtrodden buildings of the late 70s and early 80s. Oh, we're here to stay. We own that. We own a new building up the street in addition to the plant that where we currently make our actual battery products. So we have altogether about 150,000 square feet there now. We're committed. We have some European auto manufacturers, well-known household names that will be coming to visit us next month. We already have a test program with them for the European market and our product, which is uniquely set up to capture that market. So we'll have product being made right here in this area that will literally be shipped around the world. Well, green technology in particular, when we came here, we had to make a very quick decision. We had to move down here. We had to stop an auction. And we did that without any help, without any government help at all. We put our own money into the plant. When we got it set up, we then went to local government, and they were more than willing to introduce us up the chain. At that point in time, the government in PA, in Harrisburg, and the local government went out of their way to try to find programs for us, programs that we would fit into, that would enable us to obtain dollars for green development and green programs, and they continue to do that even as we speak today.
We need to have the issue of climate finance addressed squarely by the heads of state tomorrow in their communique. It's one of the major stumbling blocks to getting a fair, aggressive, and binding deal in Copenhagen. The issue of financial assistance for three purposes for developing countries. First of all, helping them implement clean technology, energy technology, as their economies develop. Reducing emissions from deforestation from tropical forests, which account for roughly 20% of global CO2 emissions. And third, helping the most vulnerable countries deal with the impacts of climate change that we're already starting to experience.
So the reason we're here in Pittsburgh is because a lot of folks here are talking about climate change. And we want to make sure that we're talking about climate change as a national security issue. Operation Free is a coalition of veterans organizations and national security organizations that want to make sure that not just the American public, but the world at large sees that America understands climate change as a national security problem. So the connection is that climate change leads to drought. It leads to famine. It leads to natural disasters. It leads to rising sea levels. Sea levels rise, populations have to flee. Drought happens, people can fight over the resources. Storms arrive like Katrina, and that damages naval bases and other military installations. So the problem is that the word that we like to use is a threat multiplier. So you take the threats that already exist throughout the world, and then you make more problems like migration, like scarcity of water, scarcity of food. That means there are more reasons for people to fight with one another. And when that happens, it's often the United States military that has to respond.
But my name is Jonathan Powers. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for the Truman National Security Project. The Truman Project is working to raise awareness between the connections of climate change and national security. And as a former captain in the United States Army and as an Iraq veteran, I understand firsthand the challenges we face, the challenges our national security apparatus face when dealing with this growing threat. Over the course of my time in the military, I learned incredibly valuable lessons. My first day in the service, I had a platoon sergeant who pulled me aside by my lapels, and he said, "Sir, there's two types of leaders in the military. There's those that lead by rank, and there's those that lead by example. The soldiers will follow those that outrank them, but they want to follow someone that sets an example, someone that sets a standard." Unfortunately, we as a nation, America, has been leading by rank on climate change for too long, and it's time that we lead by example. Our world is at a critical point, and our security relies heavily on how we address this growing threat.